As I start this drawing in a somewhat already started state, after a false or a attempt at doing it and it not working out, I realized like the hypocrisy of trying to make everything seem perfect or seem like you have complete control over everything and anything that happens. And in a true sense, it's really hard to find that ability to have control over everything. And I think that that is more than okay. I think it's true strength to know that you may not have control over something, but you still act. In this video, I want to talk about how to find inspiration or to create without the need of inspiration. I feel like I've been trying so hard to find ways by myself to uncover this idea of creating without being inspired by this idea of just simply, setting my mind to it and just being like, I want to get this done. I want to see this completed. I want to do this right now. I recently, just this morning, read an article that was talking about how to create without inspiration and how it's important to, be able to do that, because I don't know, it's just much more efficient, much more shit gets done, like instead of waiting for this moment where you feel prepared because of something like Arcane and how the beautiful animation just pushes you further to, create stuff like that. I think that, yeah, they definitely had inspiration to do that, but at its core, they just kept showing up. It wasn't that they waited for, some crazy animation to come out and took that as a inspiration for every time they got into the studio or they started working on characters and the story. They showed up every single day. They said, I want to show up for this project. And I think that's kind of what the article is trying to say, where it's like, we show up, we make the routine to simply create, despite anything that tells you don't feel inspired to do this. You just show up and do your best for that day. You make it a daily routine to show up and create. I think we take for granted our ability to create without help from the outside world. I think we have so much strength to see our vision through without the need for outside influences. But growing up, we've been stuck in a way of like feeling like nothing can get done, and that drags us down. It makes us feel like our work is worthless and it wouldn't be worth it to, do it. And then when we see something that does the work that we wanted to do, or we experience like a breakup, or we experience pain that's unbearable, or a family member dies, or you get hit by a car or something like that, or just like if you read this really good book. Like I recently found The Four Agreements. It's been a very huge inspiration to me, and it's definitely changed how I see things. And I believe we talked about it in some series already. If you want to go back and see, but this idea of relying on the inspiration of outside factors kind of has to die when you found like a true passion, a true will, or a true thing that you want to get done. And it's not to say that we won't get inspired. It's not to say that we shouldn't feel the desire to create when we are inspired. I think it's more about the desire to create without being inspired to create, you know? It's like there's this undying will to just simply get up and do your thing. In The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, one of my favorite questions that he asks, or beckons, or whatever the word is this idea of what would you do if you were alone? What would you still do if you were alone? Like, you were the last person on earth, what would you still do? And I think that is an interesting way of seeing it, where it's like, do that, you know? Continue to do that over and over again, because that is something that you don't feel the need to seek approval for. You don't feel the need to wait for the right time to do it, you know? For me, I found that to be skating. I found that to be automatic drawing. I found that to be listening to music, creating music, writing poems. And it may be a lot of different things that you would do if you were still alone. It's just a proof to see that these are the things that you would do without the presence of others and the presence of, not being able to get anything done because of the lack of inspiration. I mean, you would still walk, you'd still go places, you'd still, talk, you'd still think. Those are things that are just second nature. You don't really think about them very much, but you would do it because you've routinely done them. You've made a habit out of doing those things. So why is it so hard for us to make habits out of the things that we really feel passionate about doing, and like it takes so much effort to do those things? Maybe it's has one thing to do with just that. You feel so passionate about it that it's almost heart-wrenching if anything ever stopped it or anything ever, ruined that opportunity for you. And you don't know how you would handle, that moment where it's like, damn, that really destroyed me. Rejection. So in its truest form, every day you get up and you do that thing that you want to do. For me, it is most likely draw. I've decided that I want to get up and do automatic drawing every morning and every night, and be able to meditate this moment just to feel out what I need to do for the rest of the day, what I need to figure out for myself. And that may look different for you. I mean, the articles or the readings that I've been reading have all been dealing with writers and the idea of just getting up and write, and I feel like that is very interesting way of thinking about the fact that like they're mostly writers, where the people who are talking about, you know, like how do you write, or how do you continue writing, how do you get inspiration, how do you you know, finish a chapter. It's just you write. You know, there's nothing too uppity about it. It's just they write, and that may be very hard sometimes. And I think that you have to kind of find your balance and make sure that, you know, you're taking care of yourself. But it doesn't take too much to just do like 20 minutes of drawing, or 20 minutes of writing, or an hour of writing. You know, finding what works for you, and not thinking about so much how much time you're putting into it, but rather making sure that you show up every day and you're doing your best, you know? Show up every day and make sure that you're doing your best. I think that's exactly what it means to create without being inspired. I think that, like, one of my main issues is I can't create without music. And boy, I love music. I can't even describe how much I love music. It's my drug. I even made like a solid comic about how much I love music. And it's not necessarily that, you know, it's not necessarily that I wouldn't, you know, create with music. It's just the idea that I can't create without music. Like, I always wonder, why is it so hard to create without music? And it's probably because I've been doing it my whole life, you know? And I feel like sometimes it's hard to find that right playlist or that right song to listen to while you're, you know, creating. And that's very difficult to do sometimes. But we kind of have to get out of this idea that we need external factors to make things work. Sometimes you just gotta do it, you know? Shia LaBeouf. I mean, that phrase still sticks, you know? It sticks very strong. I love music to death, but I think that if it stunts my ability to draw, and it stunts me from actually, you know, picking up the pencil and just pen, I mostly use pen. I use pencils for these, but like picking up the pen and just drawing, you know, then am I really, you know, just creating for the sake of creating, or am I creating because of the fueling of music? I feel like I want to be able to create with the sense of just creating, and not because of some inspiration that really drive that in for me. Music suggestion for the end of the video. I recently listened to an EP. I forgot what it's called. But it's the first EP on Spotify of My Bloody Valentine. One of the first groups to ever do shoegazing, and alternate rock. That's my music suggestion to you, and I hope that you enjoy it. I think that was the music that really taught me a lesson about inspiration, because I listened to it today and I was just like, wow, you know, like, this makes me feel so inspired. It makes me feel like so ready to just take on the world. But sometimes you kind of just have to, sometimes that doesn't work, you know. Sometimes you won't have that like music that inspires you. Sometimes you'll be listening to the same shit over and over and over and over and over again, to the point that it just gets boring, and then you're just like, or it just doesn't fit the mood, and then you're just like, since I don't have the right music, I don't think I'm gonna draw today. You know, that doesn't make any sense. We shouldn't let anything decide for us whether we draw or not. We should just show up and do our best, and, you know, complete what we can, and make up the habit of just doing it, you know. simply doing it. So, in a way, be inspired all the time. Be inspired by your will to just show up for yourself and